Before we jump into Hofstra Baseball, I'm joined by Juliana Battaglia and Jesse Lindell. How are you guys?
The nerves are just flying right now. I'm super nervous. This is the last show of my senior year, time at SportsBeat. I'm just ready to get going and get on with it.
Me too. It's a senior show. It's a very special time for a lot of us here. And we got a lot of great things to talk about tonight. Baseball, professional, and Hofstra Baseball. And, of course, the Olympics coming up. A lot of great things to get to.
So let's dive right into things. The Hofstra Baseball team has returned to action, and despite dealing with the trials and tribulations of a season tainted by COVID-19, the Pride have had a solid showing. They currently sit at 12-14 overall and 3-8 in CAA play. So my first question to you guys is, who have been some of the key performers in the early portion of North Division CAA play?
Well, I think for Hofstra, I'm definitely going with Rob Weishire on this one. He has put up an offensive showing for them. He had a homer in Game 1 of the doubleheader against Northeastern, even though they dropped that. He put up an RBI double in a game against Delaware, even though they dropped that one. But in their recent sweep of their doubleheader against Towson, he moved into 8th place on the career doubles list for Hofstra with 40, and is now alone in 9th place on the career home run list with 21. So I definitely think Weishire takes the cake for me on this one.
Weishire has definitely been a great player for this lineup, but another piece to the lineup that's been really successful is Austin Gauthier, and he's a player that I'm really excited to see succeed because last year he's off to such a great start before the COVID-19 pandemic shut the season down. But so far this year, he's proven that hot start last year is not a fluke. He's hitting .368 in CAA play. That's 7th across the Colonial Athletic Association. He's getting on base 52% of the time, which is absurd. That's 2nd in the conference. And he went 7 for 16 this last weekend against Towson. So he's really been swinging a hot bat for this team. And I just love watching him play. He's been a great player for the Pride.
So we've highlighted some of the best players for the Pride this year, but taking a look at their head baseball coach, what does this season mean for the legacy of Coach John Russo? He became the all-time winningest coach in Hofstra history earlier this year.
Well, what a title to attain for Russo. That's really something special. But I think this season is kind of like a bounce-back season for the Pride. Prior to the pandemic and the shortened season, they were 11-14 in CAA play, and they had missed the conference tournament by just a game. So that was a huge blow for them. And then they couldn't really bounce back in 2020 because the season was shortened, and they also struggled with a 4-10 record. So I think, with Russo taking that title, this is just momentum for them to go forward and have a really strong season, and as I said, come out stronger than they could have in the last 2 years.
When Coach John Russo officially took over as the head coach, he got off to a really good start. Had some up and down years mixed in between, but the team has been playing a little bit better as of late, and some great players have come through this Hofstra Pride baseball program. You look at John Rooney, who's taken in the 3rd round of the Major League Baseball draft. Most recently as well, Vito Fresia. Teddy Sillis is another guy that was drafted. And a lot of these guys, John Russo recruits, and he has a big part in these guys coming to Hofstra to play for him. So he's a great coach. He's able to develop talent, and this is just another milestone in his great Hofstra career.
Now, the Hofstra offense has had their ups and downs this year, but they have scored double-digit runs 4 times, including a program record-tying 27 runs on March 23rd against Sacred Heart. So who have been the best parts of this Pride offense?
I think it's really just been, all these multi-hit games that the offense is putting up that has been absolutely just a joy for me to watch. You mentioned that March 23rd game. 8 different players in that game had a multi-hit game. And Ryan Marash was one of them, collecting 4 hits. I mentioned Weishire before as well, but Weishire in a doubleheader game against Towson collected a 6-hit game, which was the first time Hofstra had done that since 2012. So I think the offensive showing and collecting all these multiple hits in the games is really what I've just loved to see.
You brought up the multi-hit games. Of course, the guy I mentioned earlier, Austin Gauthier, has 8 of those this year. Ryan Morash, another player that you mentioned, has 8 multi-hit games as well. And Ryan Morash has just had a great season. He's hitting .348. His bat was kind of slow when getting to the collegiate level, but it's really come around this year, and it's something that is really great for the Pride because now it's just another piece in that lineup that is able to get on base along with him, along with Weishire, along with Gauthier, and along with Anthony D'Onofrio. And they have a very strong top half of the lineup, and Morash is a very big part of that.
Now, the Pride have won 2 in a row. They beat the Towson Tigers their last 2 games, but they did lose 3 of 4 to Delaware earlier in the season. So, with the Fightin' Blue Hens coming up for a 4-game series starting this Friday, April 30th, what adjustments do the Pride have to make this time?
Well, I think it relies on their pitching for a start. You know, when you look at the way they played against Delaware last time in those few games, they lost 5-11, they lost another 5-7, lost another 9-10, and then they won one 14-4 in that blowout game. But when you look at their losses, I mean, you know, the offense is putting up 5+ runs in those games, and the pitching is just letting, you know, the opposing team pile on the runs here. So I think if the pitching can help, can get better on track to help these games not slip away, I think that'll benefit them a lot.
I agree with Juliana, and the pitching definitely has to be better later in games. They blew a 6-0 lead in the first game against Towson. They ended up losing 9-8, and they allowed 3 runs in the extras in the 10th. Before tying the game. Then they allowed a run in the 11th before Weishire hit a walk-off, and they scored 2 runs in the 11th. So the pitching has to be better, especially late in the game.